Hi YouTube, it's Jen. Welcome to my channel. This update has taken a lot longer than I expected. I was trying to learn how to relax, basically. I had been pressuring myself to feed the algorithm, and I was having a chat with my friend the other day, and I was telling her I was stressed out. I had just finished a recent interview cycle, which I'll talk about in a second, and I was telling her I was stressed out because I needed to upload a YouTube video right away, but I was kind of down in the dumps. And the first thing she said to me was like, "You don't know how to relax, do you?" And that really struck a chord with me because in a lot of ways, I think that's true. And that's something that I am trying to work on and heal. So where do I begin? As most of you know, I don't script any of this because I try to be authentic to myself. And it's also a way for me to work on my crippling perfectionism. So YouTube has been really great for me in that way, to be able to show up online and just kind of talk. It's a way for me to not be as polished and just share what I think, and hopefully my authenticity resonates with some of you. So the last time you heard from me, I was interviewing with 5 different companies at once with the hopes of landing an offer so I could pursue my creative endeavors on the side, because that is where I felt the most safe. And it's funny because when I first started this channel, I had declared that I wanted to take a sabbatical. Well, the universe has a way of working, because after 3 final rounds later, I did not get an offer, and it was really disheartening. I think I'm battling a lot of myself, but this channel is about having compassion and understanding that I have been operating from a place of scarcity my whole life, and I've never really given myself time to be. I think that from a young age, I was taught that I needed to work really hard to get to university, to get to a good job. And I've never really thought about more than that until now. And I think the universe is trying to teach me something. I did want to upload a video during the last several weeks, but I honestly didn't have the energy. I wasn't really sure what to say except talk about all the despairing feelings I had. And I don't know if that's helpful for other people to hear, but it was a really tough process. I think I was navigating my hypocrisy for saying that I wanted to take a break and then interviewing anyway. And then what became interviewing for practice became full-blown juggling interviews. And I think that I felt that because I was so deep in doing something that was so painfully uncomfortable to do, that I just wanted it to result in an offer, because I was working so hard and studying so hard for these interviews. And I was blinded by all the hard work that I was putting into it and my sense of security that I wanted to reach. And so at the end of it, I got to 3 final rounds, but no offers, which really sucks. And it really sucked because I felt like I was so close. It was between me and one other candidate for a large payment technology company, and they ended up going with the other candidate. And then another ad tech company verbally stated that they wanted to give me an offer. And they were just waiting for budget to be approved, but that budget did not get approved. So I was really discouraged, down in the dumps the last few weeks, because it's just been a crazy roller coaster. I would think a round went really well with one company, and then it turns out that they didn't want to move forward with me after that. I would think I did really poorly, only to find out that they wanted to proceed with me. I think I learned that I am so terrible at determining the outcome of an interview that there's no point. I was so exhausted ruminating about how each round went. I recognized that I was torturing myself by thinking so deeply about what I could have done better each round, or beating myself up. And I really convinced myself that I just have to put one foot in front of the other. After each round, I would do my best and assume that I wasn't moving forward so I could focus on other different company rounds. And I think that really helped me out. Another thing that really helped me out in the process was journaling every day. Every morning, I would get out my journal and I would write and kind of approach myself in a compassionate way so I wouldn't have to keep thinking about it for the rest of the day as I was taking these interviews. But yeah, I didn't get an offer, and that really sucked because, it was almost a month and a half of just torture, and nothing became of it. And I realized that so much of that time, and that was over the holidays too, it's just not how I want to spend my time. And I think the universe is like, okay, Jen, you want to play, like, you're not in your past position for a reason. You have an opportunity to choose something different. If you really want to keep torturing yourself and operate from a place of scarcity, here you go. Here's 5 companies you can interview in and watch it be fruitless, and look how you treated yourself and tormented yourself through the process. The whole experience really made me ask myself, like, is this how I want to spend the rest of my sabbatical or the planned time that I have off? And the answer is no. I took all those interviews because I felt that I was so lucky to be getting interviews in this market, and that it would be stupid of me not to. But I think now I know better, and that I will apply only to roles that I think I could be interested in, and truly really just do it for practice. Because in a previous video, I talked about how in life what we want is often not what we need or what's meant to happen. And I talked about a few times in terms of my career and my relationships where I'm so glad that what I wanted didn't happen. And I'm finding it so hard to trust that now. In hindsight, it makes sense, but if you're experiencing it, it's really hard to figure something out. I can share with you guys some things I journaled about if you guys are interested in it. So at the start of every day, I would start answering the question, how am I feeling today? Why are these feelings not true? And I would think about the 3 doorways to self-compassion, which would be giving yourself kindness and care, understanding that pain is part of the human experience, and holding your thoughts and feelings in conscious awareness. And then the next question I would answer is, what is positive about my situation? What is life trying to teach me right now? Am I stopping to give myself comfort or just focusing on the problem? And then what's the most loving thing I could do for myself right now? And then I would finish my day with gratitude. On top of journaling in the morning and meditating and listening to different books and podcasts, I watched some videos, and one of them, which I will link in the description, is a career gap podcast episode by Jay Shetty, where he talks about, even for him, he has had, I want to say 3, don't quote me on this, 3 adult gap years to figure out what he wanted to do with his life. And obviously, again, the concept that success is not linear. You're going to have peaks and valleys throughout your life, and at some point when you're aligned with the direction you're going, success, however you define it, is going to be exponential. And I think he gave an analogy. It may not be the exact one, but it's more or less the same thing. Imagine you're hiking somewhere, and if you don't stop to recalibrate and, look at your map or decide what direction you want to go in, let's say you're at a national park and there are so many different places you could go to. If you don't stop and give yourself the space to think about where you want to go, you're going to keep going down that path, and it's going to be a destination you don't want, and it's going to be even harder to come back and then walk the other direction. When things are positioned like that, to me, a sabbatical makes so much more sense. In practice, I understand that you need to give yourself the space and time to figure out what you want to do. And now I really believe, I know in my first video I said that I felt like I owed it to myself, but it took a lot of convincing myself to get here. It took coming out on YouTube and saying I wanted to do it, to slowly reverting back to my old ways, to getting absolutely burnt to a crisp, going through these interview cycles that ended up in nothing. It took all of that for me to really understand that the universe is telling me that I need a break. When I was in college, I would be so jealous of the kids that got to travel abroad or do a semester abroad because I couldn't afford it then. And then even after graduation, I would be jealous at the kids that took a gap year before they started working, because I started working the day I graduated because I'd already been with the company while I was in college. And I just haven't stopped working since. And 10 years later, I've built the security to get here. Can I give that to myself? Can I give that to young Jen that wanted to explore that part of her? Can adult Jen be kind enough to give that to her after everything that I worked for? I think that's why I'm feeling better about the whole situation, the interview cycle not working out, because It's becoming really apparent to me that I need this, and I'm very stubborn, so I had to learn the hard way. A few other notes about interviewing. A lot of the things that I asked myself when I was journaling was like, can I just trust that I am a good candidate and it's about fit? I think a lot of what was challenging for me was I was really down on myself. Like maybe I didn't study enough. Maybe I didn't have enough examples of my past history. Maybe I didn't present well enough. Maybe I sounded like I bullshitted that answer. Can I just trust that I'm a qualified candidate that got as far as I did and as many interviews as I did, and that I'm just waiting for the right fit? Like, can I just trust that it has nothing to do with me? As a person that speaks very poorly about herself in her mind, that's hard for me to believe, but I want to believe it more and more. And so some recruiters have been nice enough to give me feedback, but they didn't really give me any constructive feedback. One of the recruiters from the large payments technology company, he literally said, everyone rated you 5 out of 5. He read all of the positive feedback I got and said there was no negative feedback, yet they didn't end up going with me. So I'm very curious to know what the other candidate had that I didn't, that they didn't share with me. Can I just trust that when I'm ready to really jump back into the job market, that the right fit will be waiting for me? Those are the types of things that I asked myself when I was trying to see the positive side in the situation. One of the quotes I read during this time was that rejection is redirection. And I love that. I just don't know if I've necessarily thought of it that way before. I think whenever I get rejected, it hurts and I think bad things about myself. But can it just be that rejection means not a good fit and that it wasn't meant for you and you were meant for something else? Maybe a sabbatical. Some other things that I asked myself after the interview cycle, like, was I really ready to get back into the workforce? One of the things that I'd love to talk about is burnout. I have been very lucky that the roles that I've held in my career have not been crazy exhausting. Only on occasion I felt like work-life balance was poor, but for the most part, my previous roles were never super demanding. I would often take note of how I feel, and I would realize like I was like burnt out, but I felt bad saying that I was burnt out because it's not like I was working 15-hour days. I was just not feeling inspired. And I'm really glad that I came across the different sources of burnout. Burnout is not just a result of working really hard. It also comes from working in an environment that doesn't energize you, with people that have different values, with a company that has different values. Burnout comes from misalignment. And I think after being in this space for so long and truly feeling that the work that I was doing wasn't meaningful or didn't give me energy, I think it's safe to say that after 10 years, I do feel burnt out by that. It's so funny because this whole sabbatical thing is like me having to convince myself that I deserve one. And apparently this is normal. I joined a group called the Sabbatical Project, where people connect with one another to talk about the ways in which they want to approach their sabbatical, whether it's about recharging, exploring new paths, learning new skills, or even learning to give yourself permission to take a break. There are coaches dedicated to it too. So it's not an uncommon thing, apparently, to have a hard time giving yourself permission to take a break. I was reading Ali Abdaal's book. It asks the question, are successful people happy, or are happy people successful? And it argues that it's the latter. I do know a lot of traditionally successful people that aren't happy. Well, the question that I ask myself is like, can I really trust and believe that if I take care of myself, if I make sure that I get enough rest, if I make sure that I do things that align with my values, if I make sure that I'm happy and doing things that energize me, can I trust that success will follow? I think growing up as a child of immigrants, that has never been the way to operate. The way to operate to be successful, and that's the traditional marker of success, is to work hard. And I've spent entirely too long talking about the interview process for me, but what I really wanted to talk about was the idea of letting go of control. Growing up as a child of immigrant parents, we're taught that hard work is everything. And if you work hard, you will reach all your goals, be successful, whatever that looks like for you. And one of the things that I've been grappling with lately is because I listen to a lot of Michael Singer, and I've talked about this in a previous video, and I also touched on this earlier, that He says that life is not in our control, that everything happens the way it's supposed to happen because of billions and millions of things that are happening all at once, and we have nothing to do with it, and we think that we do. And I believe that in a way, but I think that because I was raised to believe that everything that I have is a result of my hard work, it's hard for me to let go of control, if that makes sense. So I understand that I grew up in a privileged position where my parents pushed education super hard on me, and they made sure that I didn't have to work during high school so I could focus on my studies, and even helped me pay my college tuition. I recognize I'm very privileged to have experienced that. But growing up, it's easy to believe in the illusion of control because it's like, yeah, of course I got into a good school because I studied super hard. And of course I reached these roles and milestones in my career because I worked hard. I've been having a hard time separating hard work and outcomes, basically. And one of the questions I ask myself is like, is it really possible to believe that if we do our best, then whatever happens is the best thing that can happen for us? Can I trust that if I take care of myself and do things that energize me, that what's meant for me will happen? And like, can I just not torment myself about expected outcomes and just trust that everything will be fine? I guess that's where I'm at in my journey now. I think after that brutal interview cycle, I really do think that I'm ready to focus on healing and taking care of myself and rest and figuring out things that I enjoy and play. I don't want to interview with nearly as many companies that I did. And I think for any company that I do interview with, I want to make sure that it's somewhere I actually want to work, because I feel like I've proved to myself enough that I can get a job in this market. It's just about the right fit, right? I hope. I mean, I didn't get an offer, but maybe as far as I got is good enough. I don't know. Another book that I just finished is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And everything that he said in his book could not align with my personal values more. I've always believed in work smarter, which is why I say that throughout my career, I've never really felt like my job stripped me of my work-life balance, because I would just never allow it to get to that place. And it's so funny because there's a lot of shame that I think I felt about that too, especially being in the Bay Area tech scene, because a lot of people love to grind and love to talk about how hard they work because it's impressive or cool. And I was like, I actually don't think that's cool. You look exhausted, you sound exhausted, and I don't know why that's something to be proud of. But anyway, that sounds super judgmental. But yeah, I loved that book. So in the book, he talks about having mini retirements throughout your life instead of saving all of your money and working so hard to retire towards the end of your life, when you're way less active and nimble to go do things and experience things. I feel like this is a really good time for me to take one. And I don't have any definitive plans yet, but I have not been to Argentina and Chile yet. And I would really love to go to Patagonia. So maybe my partner and I will explore maybe trying to live there for a couple months. I don't know. I'd really like to do that. I don't think I've ever taken long enough time off of work to really immerse myself in a different culture. So I'd really love to try out slow travel, and hopefully I can do that this year. I think after the brutal interview process I just went through, I'm really trying to just pay attention and take signs from the universe and understand that I really do deserve a break. I'm going to do my best to lean into this career break or sabbatical or whatever you want to call it, because the opposite of that looks awful, which is what I just did, which was constantly interview with so many different companies and feel just so burnt out and upset, and put myself in the exact situation I was in before I said I wanted to take a break. I would be working in environments that didn't energize me, with companies that didn't have missions that were super meaningful to me. And so I'm really trying to pay attention to what the universe or life is trying to tell me. And I think it showed me like, hey, Jen, you can do this. You can keep burning yourself out and keep not being compassionate with yourself and interviewing super hard. And you may or may not get a job, or you may find yourself back where you were before you wanted to take a break, which is going backward. Or you can try something totally new, which you've never done before, which was really just to be compassionate with yourself and take a break and figure out what you actually want to do for yourself and for your life. And I'm starting to see more and more that the universe is trying to help me do that. So this is a funny coincidence, and honestly, this is a self-sabotaging behavior that I shouldn't do. It usually ends up hurting my feelings, but ended up being fruitful this time. The mental health company that I had mentioned in a previous video that I wanted to work at so badly because I had, idealized it in my mind. I had romanticized it. And I was like, wow, like I could be a product manager here. It would be a promotion. It would be a pay raise. I'm so lucky they're willing to interview me, and the mission's really important, and maybe I can finally work a job that is meaningful to me and I can have the security I want. The shitty thing that I did for myself was go on LinkedIn to see who they hired for the position because I was curious. Turns out they still have not filled the role, so it's been a few months, which is surprising. But I noticed that the hiring manager that had interviewed me was no longer with the company. And I think that was really eye-opening for me because I don't think this person was terminated. I think that person left on their own, and that person now works at a fintech company. So I thought that was so interesting because I had chatted with the hiring manager and we both talked about how deeply important the mission of the company was to us. And, only to find out a couple months later that person left to go work in a totally different industry. So I had really romanticized and put this company on a pedestal in my mind, or this opportunity, because I thought it was great in XYZ ways. But how great could it have been if the person that was going to hire me left shortly after interviewing me? I thought that was really eye-opening, and I don't know, I was telling my partner the story and he didn't really think it was as groundbreaking as I did, but I kind of looked at that and I was just like, is the universe really watching out for me? Maybe I didn't get far with that company because that really wasn't meant for me. And maybe the environment there wasn't what I thought it would be. And maybe the mission of the company doesn't matter as much as I thought it did if the person that was hiring me wanted to leave. So I don't know. I'm just kind of paying attention to things now. And I think I'm so over tormenting myself and talking to myself poorly and just not taking chances when I've never tried the opposite, which is being kind to myself and doing things that give me energy and feeling positive and happy about the decisions I'm making and truly taking care of myself. So I think I'm actually excited to go in this direction today and moving forward. Again, I won't hold myself to that because if you guys have seen, I have a track record of backpedaling, but I really hope that's not the case because it took a lot for me to get to this point. I had to learn a lot of difficult lessons, and I'm starting to feel a little bit more excited than scared. So that's really huge, and that's all I think to credit to all of the journaling that I've been doing, the books that I've been reading. I hope all the resources that I've shared with you have been helpful as well. Another book that I read, when I started this YouTube channel, I was like, okay, I probably should be a better storyteller. So I read the book Storyworthy by Matthew Dix. And the biggest takeaway that I got from that book, because I don't think I'll ever be a great storyteller, is the concept of homework for life. And he says that we should do homework for life so we can remember the details about our lives and understand that there really are stories that we can dig into every day. But it's been helpful for me because it's been helping me remember every single day that passes. And I do it every morning to reflect on the previous day. And whenever I read my past entries, I remember those days. I remember my exact feeling, or I can actually imagine it in my head. And I think that's really important and special because when I was working, it was just the week and then the weekend. And now that I'm not working, it's very much individual days. And I want time to slow down during this period because I would hate for it to fly by. I'm doing anything that I can to make sure that I can really cherish this time that I have for myself to pursue a new path. As far as next steps for me, I'm really just going to focus on healing. I'm taking a break. I want to upload on YouTube more, but I also don't want to pressure myself because this is not supposed to be a stressful endeavor for me. I know I have to feed the algorithm, but I only want to come on here when I have something meaningful to say, and I don't want this to be a place of burnout for me. I want it to be a place of creativity and joy. I'm also planning to do The Artist's Way, and I do want to do a video series on that. And maybe you guys can join me when I do it, but it would be probably starting in March because I also booked a trip to Costa Rica and Nicaragua, which is really exciting. I did take a trip when my career break first started. In October, I went to Japan and Korea, and now I'm going to Costa Rica and Nicaragua, which is really exciting because after this trip, I will have visited 50 countries. Traveling means so much to me, and I'm glad that value of travel is still something that's deeply important to me that I'm willing to do even during this uncertain time in my life. I want to upload more on YouTube and on Instagram and my website for all of my travel things. So you might see some travel shorts probably. I hope that's fine to mix that content with this kind of like personal development content. But yeah, I'm really just hoping to lean more into creativity and joy and rest and really just not torment myself anymore and trust that the universe is taking care of me. And the last thing I want to say is that I created a Discord server. It's not easy to connect with your audience through YouTube comments I found. So I created a Discord server if anyone wants to join. There are a few channels in there that would just be for like general chatting, or we can hold each other accountable to sharing something that we're grateful for or celebrate a little win. I had talked to a friend about this, and we talked about how important it was to celebrate the little wins in our life because it makes us more grateful. It increases our self-confidence, and yeah. And then there are also a bunch of channels in there for all the books that I've read. If anyone ever wants to talk about them, we can have discussions on that channel. But yeah, I would love to hear from you. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this journey. It means so much to me, and I hope it's helpful for you as well. And I'll see you in the next one.